What is up, fellow sickos? I'm Dan Favale coming at you with a slew of people today to do the 5-year NBA redraft. You heard a little bit about it in the intro that Grant and I recorded. Grant and I are here. We are joined by our esteemed Bleacher Report colleagues, Jay Dunbar, Bryant Toporek. We do not have Bryant Knox, the other participant of this draft, but we do have his picks, so we'll go through those and slander him accordingly for them. Their socials, Jay, Bryant's, and Brian's, will be in the YouTube and podcast descriptions, or if you're watching, they will be up on screen. But before we get started, Brian, do you think that you could just take the kids through and let them know how we approached this 5-year redraft?
It would be my pleasure. Thank you guys for having us and for participating in this. Always a ton of fun, and I'm very excited to both slander and defend. Slander everyone else's picks and defend mine. So the premise here, we are doing the 2020 through 2024 draft classes. Anyone who was undrafted during that time is also eligible, namely Austin Reaves. We are starting every franchise from scratch, so you do not have to consider team fit here. And it was, if every team is starting from scratch with this player pool, who would you pick to build your franchise around moving forward? We are not considering contracts in here. We are considering injuries. So notably, Tyrese Haliburton has a torn Achilles in real life. He has a torn Achilles in this scenario as well. But if you believe that he will be fine come 2026 when he is recovered, you can pick Tyrese Haliburton, and that is fair game. Believe that is everything. I guess I should note the teams were ordered in reverse of their winning percentage over the past 5 years, in case you're wondering how we arrived at the order we did. But again, we weren't taking team fit into account. So just to confuse you a little more, the teams don't really matter. The order of the players is really all that matters.
I have a question.
Yes.
How is it? This is the second year in a row that we have done this, and you've had the first pick each time. I would like to know. I call shenanigans.
Yes, I did. I knew that was going to be an accusation. I sent a video of me running a randomizer. I'm surprised that no one accused me of running the randomizer like 10 times until I actually got number one again. But shout out to Random. I believe random.org is the esteemed place that continues to grant me Victor Wembanyama number one.
Spoilers, but
I just am a little insulted. You didn't think we would notice the Sora watermark on the video. So I did. At least I think I did.
That's right. I only
whatever. It's fine. It's fine. It's not like this is a one-player draft anyway, where there's a clear number one overall.
I only had to drain one small lake to get my number one pick.
Well, speaking of the number one pick, do you want to take us through it and your logic?
What's your thought process here?
Yeah, I'm going to take about 50 minutes to defend taking Victor Wembanyama at number one. No, 10 seconds. I mean, one player in this group of players has GOAT in his realistic range of outcomes. It's Wemby. He's led the league in blocks 3 straight years, averaging a career high, rebounds, points, basically everything, decided to cut down on threes and is now just murdering people inside. I mean, if he could stay healthy, he's going to be a top 10 player all time, if not top 5. If he could stay healthy is a fair question, given what happened last year, and he's already sidelined this year. But with this amount of talent, I'm taking that gamble without question.
Is there an argument at all? I'm asking the room at large here. If you were concerned about someone who's built like he is, just this physiological anomaly, to say, I know someone else in this draft is going to make 7 All-NBA teams or something, and is there any? I wouldn't have done it. I'm just asking, could you make that case or no?
I mean, like, you're making the floor case, like, or the I don't think there is a short retort or response. There's no argument against taking Wemby. We can work really hard if we want to. But.
Yeah, I have to agree, especially because as you'll see as we get on the list, injuries will show up again. So, I mean, I know what you're saying with the tall guy syndrome, but yeah, I'm not going to work hard, as Grant said, to make that case.
So the draft actually begins with me at number 2. All good things begin with me. Anyway, as Grant knows, being my co-host. I have the Wizards here at number 2. I went with Cade Cunningham, and I think that we've entered highly debatable territory for the next few picks. I considered Evan Mobley here, was probably the toughest cut for me. I know Anthony Edwards as well. My logic for Cade Cunningham became, look at what he's been able to do for an offense that has really never optimized the personnel around him. And the efficiency quibbles are fine. I get them. Give this guy help. And you saw it like a real secondary, like even playing along Dennis Schroeder was a big deal for Cade Cunningham. And I found myself asking, who are the other primary ball handlers in the NBA who are also as good on defense as Cade Cunningham, where he can do a lot of the low man stuff? He's a good rebounder now, which he will push the pace off of. And he is not going to be a sieve when he's in one-on-one situations or submarine a team defense. The list I came up with, and I went through this with Grant a little bit, there's healthy Jason Tatum. There's Giannis, if you throw him into that. You can't put, maybe down the line, he wasn't eligible, but Cooper Flag for this draft. So just looking as the macro, not for this draft. And that's why I went with Cade Cunningham, is I don't want to play is he a best two-way player in the game card, but if your primary ball handler can also be a really valuable defender and can drive that type of impact at both ends of the floor, I'm going to bet on the Wizards being able to assemble a more flattering supporting cast around Cade Cunningham in the years to come.
This is a defensible pick. I wouldn't have made it, but everybody gets to run their own race. You also forgot 2022 April to June Andrew Wiggins in your list of the best two-way players. Not in this draft class, but I just thought we don't talk about it enough. I guess I'm up next. Anybody have anything on Cade? I mean,
any
guess
qualms?
that's controversial. Pretty good pick.
I want to save holster fire until after your pick, Grant, because I think,
yes.
And then we can go to BKs, and that cluster surprised me, I will say.
Yeah, okay. I feel I've already been attacked a little bit for this in the lead up. So I, as the Charlotte Hornets, took Tyrese Haliburton at number 3. And yes, injuries are a thing. Yes, he has one of the worst ones that you can have. Don't care. There are no players in this draft pool who have been the best player on a championship team. Tyrese Haliburton is the only one that has been the best player on a conference finalist that took a historical juggernaut to 7 games and might have beat him if he hadn't gotten hurt. So I'm weighing the what has he done much more heavily than the what might he do post-injury. With that said, the argument I made when I wrote up the defense of this is Kevin Durant was 5 years older when he tore his Achilles, and that was 6 years ago, and he looks pretty good and has been pretty solid since then. I think Haliburton has a very good chance to get back to, oh my God, he's like 5th in MVP voting and is an all-NBA player after he comes back. I would also say that a huge factor here, and the reason I took him over guys like Edwards and like Mobley, was that I think Haliburton is the rarest kind of offensive player, which is if you have him, you play a certain way and it works. Like he is an infectious offensive leader, like on the Steve Nash level, I think. And we know it works because he did it last year. Like he was the reason there are others, but he was the main reason the Pacers went to the absolute precipice of winning a title. And that's just I'll acknowledge the risks and the downsides and the uncertainty. But if we're trying to get the guy that you want to build a franchise around, I'm going to take the one that took his the farthest. That's kind of like the end of the justification. And so having said that, don't feel great.
I am unmoved.
Don't feel great about it, but I did it. You got to draft with your heart too. And this was also a heart pick.
There you go. So I guess we can spoil that BK at number 4 did take Anthony Edwards to the San Antonio Spurs. And I appreciate you guys both addressing that right off the bat in your justifications, why you passed up him in particular, because, I made a list ahead of time and Ant was number 2 on mine. And I thought that was going to be like pretty consensus, Wemby 1, Ant 2. And then we get into that like 3 through 6, 3 through 7 tier that you could really go any which way. I would imagine that is not necessarily, maybe not the consensus, but like if you ask most people who are you taking over Ant or Cade or Ant or Hallie, most people would say Ant. So it's interesting. I'm not saying you guys are wrong. Like it's interesting hearing that conventional thinking challenged.
Can we just sit here and say Grant is wrong? Yeah, right? Because
You can. Let me know when
everything
Ant gets to the finals.
Well, no, so I understand that logic, but look at this. Like, with Kevin Durant specifically, never played the style of game that was so predicated on him just blitzing up and down the floor with the ball in his hands. And
Well,
I feel
sure.
like coming back from what they need him to do both on the ball and off the ball, like if he's your team tent pole, I just feel like there's more of a risk for the floor to fall out from underneath him. And it's different with, we're working on hypotheticals with Wemby, but like Tyrese Haliburton is actually dealing with this thing as we speak.
Yeah, you guys don't know this, but Dan doesn't believe in medical science. So this feels like the time to. This feels like the time to reveal that.
Per RFK,
Yeah,
if he was to just cut out the Tylenol, he never would have suffered this injury.
I know for a fact Tyrese Haliburton does not consume artificial dyes, and so his Achilles is gonna recover. No, I think I
What about seed oils,
I struggled
though?
with all aspects of the Achilles thing. Just that I do think there's a good argument to be made that like Halliburton's best asset is the way his brain processes basketball, and that's gonna be unaffected. You could also say that like, well, one of the big draft knocks is he's not super quick, and this is a guy that doesn't have a step to lose. And so great if he can see everything that needs to happen. If he can't physically do it, then this is a terrible pick. Good news is we'll all have forgotten about this by 2026 when he's back playing. And so I'll deny that I did it. No, but Edwards is way safer, right? Like Edwards is he's super durable. He's been on very good teams. He plays both ends, mostly in the playoffs on the defensive side. But like, other than Wemby, I think Edwards. I mean, Cade's really good, but Edwards has
Evan
a track
Mobley's really
record,
good too.
Evan Mobley's really I get it. I totally get it. Edwards is by far the safer pick.
I was gonna ask Jay though, because he had pick 5. Would you, and you did go with Evan Mobley, would you have? Is there a case to be made that Evan Mobley should have went for Ant, or if Ant was still on if the picks flip flopped, would you have taken Ant over Evan Mobley?
I probably would have taken it. I think
Okay.
was with Brian. I mean, I had a graphic made up for the article that goes with this exercise beforehand, and I had Wemby and Ant on there. And maybe that's just because they're the biggest stars, but I also thought that they were going to be 1 and 2. But yes, I did take Mobley at 5 for our fictional Houston Rockets, and he's already
He'd be their
a top
point guard in real life, I think, at this point.
yeah. I mean, that's not saying much, but okay. True. So yeah, I mean, he's already a defensive player of the year, reigning defensive player of the year, top 10 MVP guy last year. And if he doesn't grow at all, he deserves this spot. But I mean, I know earlier this year they're trying to run the offense through him a little bit more with Garland out and with some like other roster changes. But and that didn't go quite swimmingly, but that's still like a new role for him, and just where his baseline already is and his potential for growth offensively is just, he could push up into that, higher. This pick could look low in a couple of years, even at the end of this year. So I was happy to get him at 5.
We should probably do like a superlative things at the end, but I think this ends up being one of the best picks of the draft, because I had my big board was Wemby, and then I flip-flop between Cade and Evan Mobley. And anyone who's read my redrafts of that draft class in the past knows that I'm a notorious flip-flopper on Cade and Mobley. So I think Mobley was an excellent pick here, Jay. Excellent value too, and everyone who passed on him except for me is an idiot.
Well, I won't disabuse you of that.
You would have taken Mobley over Wemby?
Oh yeah, that's fair. Brian, you get a pass, but you also rigged the draft order,
Right.
so
I might be. I mean, I had Mobley lower than consensus, I think.
well, then you suck too. There
I
you go.
guess so. I don't know. I mean, I saw there was, I think, an athletic piece recently that was saying like they were hoping for the best version of the Cavs is if Evan Mobley is their best player, and they have been underwhelmed with the return so far. Like they want him to take another leap, and now they're starting to doubt if that's in there for him. So I think that's kind of the tough thing for a couple of these picks is like, you're not only basing it on what they are, but projecting moving forward. Like Mobley, if he hits his ceiling, is going to be in this range, but like, what if this is more or less who he is as a player? And that was a factor for a pick that I've made later on that, Dan, I know you're going to roast me over the coals for. So we'll get there.
Jay, you also had pick number 6. Who did you take?
Oh, geez. Who did I take? Let me go to the drop board. Oh, Maxey. Yes. So this one, I was kind of struggling between Alpi, Sengun, and Maxey. And while I was kind of trying to not be a prisoner of the moment with, some of the stagnation that Mobley's going through at the moment, Maxey kind of, he owned the NBA for a few nights, not long before this draft. So that might have been a little bit in my head, but I've also kind of planted my flag a little bit with him. He's just kind of the guy that I sort of gravitate to. His just mentality and his work ethic on top of his talent, just his leadership and the growth that he's shown there. And I mean, I think like just putting a ceiling on this guy is a mistake. And I said that the last time we did this exercise when I think I took him in the top 5 as well. And his growth is just across the board. His efficiency is up. His averages are up. I think he's like second in scoring right now. So I feel pretty good about it. I might regret that leaving Sengun on the board, especially, with his growth as well. I mean, we're in some like this stretch here has a lot of talent up at the top. So, I mean, you kind of can't go wrong, but I'm happy with Maxey. But like I said, I could be proved wrong.
I mean, I think we're running out of guys that you could say I could envision him being the best offensive player on a really high level team. Now there's some more speculative picks, but Maxey is like certainly playing like that guy right now and has for a couple years. We're officially in territory of like, yeah, I get it, and you almost can't knock it because there's a case for Maxey for sure. Sengun just sitting there, and we're going to talk about him. That's the only other one that I think you could really that makes this tough.
So Sengun went. BK had that pick. Bryant Knox, for anyone who doesn't know him or isn't watching on screen, had the Sengun pick at number 7. Went to the Orlando Magic. I want to ask Brian, as the resident Sixers fan, who would you have gone with when it becomes between like a Maxey Sengun?
Oh man. I mean, it is hard not to be a prisoner of the moment, but like both guys, with both guys in that respect, like Maxey is putting up such insane numbers right now, but he's also playing 41 minutes a game and is about to have his hamstring tear into 4 pieces. Whereas Sengun, is not playing for Canadian Tips, is playing for a coach who actually respects a normal minutes allocation. Although he's honestly playing 37 minutes a game, so I guess it's not that much better. Ime Udoka is trying to get his tips on as well. Man, I'm just going to be a homer and say Maxey, because I didn't see this type of a leap coming from him. There was some concern last year that I don't want to say stagnated, but like he wasn't fully ready. Like there was the question of, can he be the number 1 option on a really good team? Like you knew he could be the number 2 next to Joel Embiid with all of the attention that he commanded, but with Embiid out, he was starting, he was the number 1 guy on the scouting report most nights. He kind of struggled with dealing with that type of attention, especially when he got double teamed. Started to figure it out midway through the season, then got hurt, and it was the last season, so it didn't really matter. This year, I mean, Embiid has barely played, Paul George has barely played, and he is just single-handedly carrying the Sixers every night. I mean, it's close with him and Sengun, but, I do worry a little bit about, building around a center who is not either an elite 3-point shooter or an elite shot blocker. Jokic is the one exception where he's just such a ridiculously good passer that it doesn't matter. And I know Sengun is basically baby Jokic in that regard. And he's also added a 3-point shot this year on low volume, but still shooting almost 44% from 3, which is just a revelation for him. So like, I really don't think you could go wrong, but I'll just be a homer and say Maxey.
Grant, would you have picked, because I would have went with Sengun.
I think it depends on where I think I probably would have gone Maxey. And the reason is, like I said, we're already past like, this is our alpha on a championship team level type of guys, I think. And like, you don't want to make the scalable and portable. Like, this is way too early. It feels like in a draft with 5 draft classes to be thinking about that. But like Brian said,
I feel attacked.
Maxey can be good. Maxey can be a number 2 for sure, because the shooting plays no matter what, right? Like, he's a good enough shooter that if he's off the ball, like, you're terrified. You have to account for him, and he's so like, he can absolutely be on the ball. He's showing this year even more than ever. Defensively, like, Sengun, I think, has proved he can be part of a very good defense. I don't think anyone would make the case that he's the most important part of some good Rockets defenses. Maxey has generally been regarded as not a good defender, but how much does that matter at his position? I would say less so than the Sengun concerns. I think I go Maxey there, but it's close. I think we could be debating these two all day.
Yeah, I just looked at it through the perspective of, since it was from scratch, who do I think would need more ancillary help around them to build? And I know Houston has Durant now, but the offense is killing it even when Durant's not on the floor and Şengün's there. I think just his level of passing and then just his body type and having a center bring the ball up the floor, I think he needs less talent around him to raise the floor of an offense than a Tyrese Maxey does, is where I landed.
Yeah, that's fair.
You had pick number 8, Grant. Which team had it, and who did you take?
The Toronto Raptors had it, and this is a little, and I'll admit to this is another pick with your heart a little bit, and I've been prefacing this for several picks, I do think we're out of number 1 options. That's been the knock on Jalen Williams. I would note that the Thunder were plus 5.4 in the playoffs last year when I think they won the championship when J-Dub was on the floor and Shea was off. So he made strides towards answering the can he be the guy without another guy as an offensive leader. I think it's like, it may be the type of thing where from series to series, because the Thunder are going to be in a lot of playoff series, he'll answer the bell sometimes and he won't. So he's like a 1.5 option or something like that. But I think he's just the portability thing and the scalability. Like, he's good at literally everything. All defensive player last year, all NBA player. Has shown the ability to shoot over 40% from 3 when he's not tasked with a ton of playmaking. He's just like, I don't know, he's, other than Cade, I guess, and maybe Edwards, like the most complete player in this pool. And at 8, I think you do that, especially if you believe, which I still am inclined to, there might be some, like, if he were on a different team or had been tasked with first option creator stuff, he might be able to do that more regularly or maybe all the time. Plus,
I have another follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
Are you planning at all to draft anyone who's played a game this season?
Let's see. Yep, my next pick has played this season. So, yeah, again, with the I think he'll be okay with the shooting risk. The Thunder are just sandbagging it, so they don't have to pay him. And they did it. He's not going to play 65 games, so they don't have to pay the supermax rates.
Honestly,
just great gamesmanship.
Do Jay or Brian, do you have any thoughts on Grant going J-Dub here with some of the other names that are still on the board?
I do not. I mean, I hear the concern about can he be the number 1 option, but I mean, every NBA franchise wants a star 2-way wing, and you're not going to get many better in this age range than J-Dub. So even if you have to find someone who can lighten the scoring load on him in the future, like, just historically, you're going to run into another star wing in the playoffs. He's the guy you throw on that wing and just let him go to work. So I think it's a great pick there.
Yeah, I would have had him there too. I think, there aren't maybe one number 1 option left. We'll get to him later, but other than that, yeah, J-Dub's the pick for me too.
I went at number 9 for the Pelicans and took Chet Holmgren, and 2 players gave me pause here not to pick Chet, and based off where they ended up going in the draft, apparently I would have been the only one who had pause at this spot when looking at a Scottie Barnes or a Paolo Banchero. I do not think, let's start off here, that Chet Holmgren can be the number 1 option for an offense. I think he can. We've started off the past 2 seasons when he's been healthy of, wow, look at what he is doing, though, in a more expanded offensive role. He gets conflated among the bigs who I feel like people think they can only stretch the floor, and his game just basically spans every level. And this season, I'm kind of sold of if he can go on drives or catch the ball on the move, he's just more equipped to deal with physicality and finishing near the basket. And that kind of tipped the scales for me, because when you start to go through the list, looking at the other end of the floor, let's just assume Victor Wembanyama plays in 65 games in every single season. Who are the list of players that you think could realistically challenge him for Defensive Player of the Year? Chet Holmgren is on that short list insofar, again, as one exists. Maybe some people don't think that they do. And that's where he's scalable. I know Grant doesn't like that word in the top 10. He called it no-no or whatever, but his offensive game is scalable, and his defense he's a Defensive Player of the Year type anchor. The health gave me pause. But he hasn't dealt with anything chronic. And so that was okay, he's had a lot of, like the Anthony Davisism of, he's just dealing with all these different injuries, and some of them are serious, but they're not reoccurring. And so I felt confident enough to take him here.
I will say that I wasn't sure which of between him and J-Dub I was going to take until like the last minute. I really did think about him. The positional value is just like, it's stupid. Did you get all that from a center that can defend the rim for you? Like it was a real tough one. I would push back a little bit on the like the chronic nature. Like, is it bad that his bones break a lot? Like, what's our concern level with frail bones?
So isn't Anthony Davis's most chronic injuries themselves? And if that's isn't that the territory that Chet is falling into, which is still a problem? It's just, let's give him more than 3 seasons and change to see if it actually is a always injured thing.
And
but I mean,
the hip one is like, don't get undercut. Like, that's a little bit out of his control. I would concede.
But it's not like he re-aggravated the Liz Frank injury. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I was trying to look at it through. Any thoughts from Jay or Brian on why my pick was 100% correct, or do we just want to move on? Number 10 was the Utah Jazz. Who had this one?
That was me. Yep. So I'm just going to invite Orlando Magic fans. You can find me on Twitter at BTOPOREK. And I say that because
Twitter.
That's correct. Yeah. So flame me all you want there. I will never see it. But spoiler, I had back-to-back picks here, and I did not take Paolo Banchero with either of these picks. So we'll start with Amen Thompson. Look, I don't think Amen's going to be a number one option, and Paolo is more established in that role for sure. So if that's what I was going for, then I would have preferred Paolo. But again, I'm thinking, going back to the J-Dub thing, like, you're going to run into star wings in the playoffs. You're going to, assuming Jason Tatum comes back healthy next year, or Jaylen Brown, if Boston gets back to being what they were, there's a chance you see those guys in the finals for the next couple of years. If you're sticking in the West and J-Dub is in the West, you're going to see J-Dub in the playoffs. You need a star on both ends of the floor that can deal with a player like that. And I think Amen, he's more of a box of clay right now than more of these guys who are more well-formed. Like, we don't know exactly what Amen's going to be. But so far, he's taking a leap this year as a playmaker. He finished 5th in Defensive Player of the Year race as a sophomore, got a first-team all-defense nod last year. Shooting is going to be the swing skill for him. He is not a good three-point shooter. That has not come around this year. If that never comes around, that's going to limit his ceiling. But still, he's just so defensively versatile that I think that gives him such a high floor. And if the playmaking holds true, even if he doesn't turn into this elite number one option scorer, like, he's going to be a guy that you just want on your team because he can blow up the other team's game plan. So that's why I went him at number 10.
Are we discounting him offensively at all when you say he can't? Because I think in year 3, no one was going to say that Giannis would have counters or be a number one option at all. And if you think that Giannis isn't a true number one option, sure, but I would say at this stage, Amen's maybe even shown a little bit more as a passer than Giannis did, and they're two different types of players on the ball. Like, Amen Thompson has more of this like nuclear balletic athleticism, where Giannis so often in the beginning just felt like more of a brute force, especially once he kind of filled out. Did that factor into the equation at all for you, that, there is more offensive, or do you maybe distrust more that, I don't know if Amen Thompson, like, Giannis is taking mid-rangers, has on-ball counters, is taking threes, even though people don't necessarily love when he does it. I'm just curious as to whether you, like, or at large, are we maybe underrating the ability for Amen Thompson to broaden his offensive horizons down the line?
I mean, that was baked into this, that again, like, he's less fully formed. So like, there's a chance that he takes a big leap offensively. Like, the playmaking is already taking a big leap, but yeah, I mean, maybe the scoring comes around, and then pair that with the defense. Like, that's why I'm willing to gamble at him at number 10, even if there are some more, fully established options that were still on the board at this spot.
Nobody had anything else to add? Do you want to take us through your pick number 11, Brian?
Yes, which I know you in particular love this pick. Indiana Pacers at number 11 with Paolo Banchero still on the board. Take Jalen Johnson. And I'm willing to go to bat for this one because we've seen Jalen Johnson this year without Trae Young. I mean, he just looks like a two-way superstar. At this point, it's not a matter of should they move on from Trae Young or not. I don't really care about that, but it's clear the Atlanta Hawks, Jalen Johnson is the best player on the Atlanta Hawks right now, and they should not go back to Trae Young, this heliocentric Trae Young offense, and Jalen Johnson is the side piece. Jalen Johnson is averaging almost 22, 10, and 7, shooting 56% overall, 41.5 from three. And this isn't just a small sample size thing. Last year, he was already breaking out before the shoulder injury, but he was at 19, 10, and 5 last year, and that was with him being more of a sidekick to Trae Young. So when Paolo was the other guy, obviously, that I was torn between because he is a more established number one option offensively. But then I was just going back and forth comparing the two, and I just kept asking myself, like, what is Paolo definitively better at than Jalen, other than drawing fouls? Free throw.
So go ahead, Dan.
Okay,
I think
great.
so. Dan, you take Paolo next, and then maybe we should kind of have a little bracket around these three picks because I think it's interesting.
Yes.
So, yes, I had the Kings at number 12, and I took Paolo Banchero. Like I said, I considered taking him with my previous pick. Here's the two things that I don't understand with the Jalen Johnson over Paolo picks. Because I think the Amen Thompson pick is pretty easily justifiable. Just you're betting on the speculative nature of what he could become offensively. Jalen Johnson, has not, he's had 3 breakout seasons because he just can't really stay healthy, it feels like. You've also surrounded him this year. The offense has been good when he's on the court without Trae Young. He has a better spacing environment around him still than Paolo basically ever had until this season, and it's a better spacing environment than Paolo has right now. The defense, I think it's, to call him a two-way superstar, I think stretches it. He's fine, but I don't know. He doesn't do anything for me as someone who's going to grab rebounds, can go up and down the floor and end possessions, I guess, sure. But opponents are shooting 31% from 3 when Jalen Johnson's on the floor, and Jalen Johnson has nothing to do about that. So it feels like some of those numbers get skewed. And so I look at what Paolo, has done in the playoffs. Like, he's had they've been short appearances, but he's had some really monster cameos there. And when you start to look at, the confines in which he has worked with the Orlando Magic are just so bad. And you can point to this season before his groin injury and say, he hasn't done enough he just hasn't done enough to progress and be more efficient, which I think is a real concern. But you're just kind of looking throughout the course of this dude's career, and this is the spacing around him has been atrocious. They've ranked in the 10th percentile or worse of teammate spacing around Paolo for basically his entire career. I guess if you think he is a ball stopper, can't play faster, and you think he's never going to be able to play at different cadences, my pushback there would be, we kind of thought the same thing about Luka at one point, and at least before he left Dallas, he proved that wasn't true. I just thought other picks, I'm sure people would have taken Paolo, before, I'm taking him now, well before. Jalen Johnson specifically, and before Brian takes it, did it stand out to any of you, or are you both kind of at the point where we might just need to recalibrate how we feel about Paolo Banchero?
So I think you're right, Dan, to cite the environment and he's not been set up to succeed all that well because of the spacing. The counter to that, to me, is why can't he help the spacing and the pace of that offense? And the reason that's especially relevant is I think Paolo is a player that if he's on your team, you are built around him because of how he plays. And I would be concerned that unless he does the things that you pointed to, play faster, improve shot selection, space better, like we're seeing it. Like the Magic now, everyone's losing their minds because, hey, maybe they won't be bottom 10 in offense this year. And he's your he is your offensive centerpiece, right? So like, how good are you really? He's still very young. That could change. I would say that I have the next pick, and I would not have taken him had he been on the board, because I do think you constrain yourself. It's almost a reverse of my Haliburton argument. You have Haliburton, you're going to play this way, it's going to work. If you flip it, you have Paolo, you're going to play this way, it has not worked. And so unless he makes real strides, I think he's like, it's a paradox. You have to be built around him. And I also am not sure you can build around him. Like, right. Like he can't be a complementary player right now. So I don't know. I think you just like box yourself in a little bit with him. This is all terrible analysis if he becomes a better 3-point shooter and moves the ball faster, which he might, because he's really young. But right, Brian, like that's kind of the thinking, right? You just like, okay, this is how we play because we have Paolo, and so far it hasn't produced results.
Yes, that is exactly. It's kind of the same with Zion. I mean, Zion is an even more extreme version of this, especially with the injuries, but even remove the injuries and it's like, all right, you have this 6'6" power forward who doesn't shoot threes and can't defend the rim. So you have to build a very specific roster around him. Mm-hmm. And with Paolo, I think it's kind of the same way, whereas Jalen Johnson, I think, is much more plug and play and could fit in a variety of systems. But yeah, I mean, I absolutely acknowledge like this pick could age very badly if Paolo makes these strides. It very well could. You know,
does the context of shouldn't the context of what we're actually doing here matter at all too? You're starting a franchise from scratch, and so you want to take someone who's if he could just be the second or third best player, awesome. So I get there might be a rigidity to how you have to build around Paolo. I don't think you can build around Jalen Johnson and hope to be finish top 4 in the East. Sure, you're not winning multiple playoff series with Jalen Johnson as your best player.
I think you're right, and I think too that what taking guys like Johnson and Thompson over Paolo is illustrating is like everyone's acknowledging there's a chance that Paolo's ceiling. Everyone acknowledges Paolo's ceiling is higher than those guys and several players taken earlier. I think the disconnect is maybe your stance on him reflects that you think there's a greater percentage chance of him hitting that ceiling than maybe the rest of us that passed on him think. You know what I mean? Like the ceiling is hard to ignore, but it's like we've seen the floor and I don't know what's the analogy falls apart, like the middle stories of the Paolo experience, and they haven't been all that great.
So I'm the only one so far who would have taken him by now at 12. Jay, what about you? Would he still be on the board for you if you had picked at 12?
I mean, Brian and I talked about this before, and we were kind of I was just laughing about the prospect of him having to defend himself passing on him. So I am enjoying this conversation, but I think I don't know. It's a tough one because I think your point is well taken, Dan, where at this point in the draft, if you're building a franchise, you get a shot at a franchise star with Paolo, and you're not that. Jalen Johnson isn't that, right? So I think I would take the shot on Paolo and him advancing, getting to his ceiling based on those parameters, just because like Grant said, we all agree that the ceiling is higher. And if I'm starting a franchise, I want a star, and he might not be there yet, but that's what you have to take a shot on. So I think that's where I plant my flag. But Brian's argument is totally valid.
I think it's sus. By the way, as a segue to Grant's,
you thought I couldn't get one in, but I did.
As a segue to Grant's pick, this isn't even specific to Paolo for me. I would have taken who Grant is about to choose before Jalen. Like that, I think I'm having trouble wrapping my head around the Jalen Johnson of it all more than I understand the concerns about Paolo. But if it wasn't going to be Paolo, why wasn't it some of these other guys that we're about to discuss?
I'm just going to remind you, when Jalen Johnson is all NBA this year, I want this podcast to come back to haunt you.
It will be noted. So this is where the heist really starts, guys. I think I don't know what I would have. Jalen Johnson was off the board, so I didn't really have to think that seriously about him here. But like I said, if Paolo were still there, I think I would have gone Scottie Barnes. There is some recency here because the Raptors are way better than we expected this season. How much should that matter? He seems like a lock to make an all-defensive team so far. How much should that matter? But he's been a good defender for his whole career. I pulled some of the stats up just to do some cherry picking for the write-up for this exercise, and he's just like, whether you want to sort it by this many players in this pool have averaged a block and a steal or have averaged 5 rebounds and 5 assists, like it's just like him and Wemby or like him and one other guy most of the time. So the versatility was huge here. I'm not going to sit here and make the case he can be a number one offensive option. I just don't, unless his absolute apex to this point in his career as a shooter is just the baseline going forward. We could talk about it then, but he's not there. I just think if he's your second best player, you're a pretty good team, I think, at this stage. And that was kind of enough there. Didn't really think about anybody after him all that hard. So yeah, I don't need to belabor it. I thought he was just the most well-rounded, the best value here of anybody that was left.
I think, is this the most obvious, one of the most obvious, aside from since Wemby at number 1, is this the most obvious selection based relative to who's on the board?
I feel like you're diminishing the wisdom of this pick. Here. I think, did you mean to say inspired? Yeah.
Right. Well, because I'm looking at the players to come, and BK had the next pick, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved to number 14, and I really like Franz Wagner, and maybe there's a Franz Wagner person out there that said, oh, I would have taken Franz over. I just don't know. I definitely would have been prepared to make that argument. Does anyone have any thoughts about BK taking Franz Wagner at number 14 based off players to come?
I think it's a totally defensible pick. I didn't think about him just because I still don't think the shooting is good enough. And for the type of player he is, that was kind of a deal breaker for me.
Brian, where do you land on the Franz or Paolo discussion? If you're
man.
the Magic, or do you think that he is more valuable to their long term than Paolo?
I mean, it comes down to the shooting. Like last year was just so bad from him, and now this year he's starting to look better again. So if that is sustainable, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a question that they need to answer. Like, I hate to go back to the, do you need to break up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown thing with Boston? Because I think that was sillier, and obviously they didn't. But those guys were both more well-rounded than Paolo and Franz. Like, I think we actually might reach a point, especially based on where Orlando is financially in the wake of the Desmond Bane trade, where they might have to make that decision at some point. Probably wouldn't happen for another year or two at least, but I don't think it's a completely unreasonable thing to ask. I'll say the only other guy I would have considered at 14 is who Jay took at 15, so we can go there.
Well, can we point out the poeticism of Franz Wagner going to the Bulls in this draft when they traded away that pick that actually became Franz Wagner?
Hey, but Vooch has panned out well for them. Lots of playing tournament success.
Life finds a way.
That Vooch extension is going to hit like cocaine when we get that alert for the Chicago extension. Jay, can you take us through who you picked at number 15 and where they went?
Yeah, well, for the Atlanta Hawks, we selected Austin Reaves. Speaking of guys who, own the NBA for a short stretch this season, I mean, he's dropping like insane scoring games, taking over LA. I think I picked this up from one of your redraft stories, Dan, but just his numbers over the last 3 years without stars, without AD, without Luka, without LeBron, he runs a top 10 offense in that time frame. So, I mean, just the last couple of years alone, he probably warrants a spot here in the middle of this draft. But his growth this year is frankly unexpected, at least for me. And I mean, the fact that he's scoring as much as he does and he can be that main option for short stretches, just kind of, I was happy to get him here. I jumped right on him. So fun guy to have on the team too.
Am I the only one who would have taken LaMelo Ball by now, or is it alone in that camp?
We'll get there. I mean,
So-
first of all, Reaves is the only undrafted.
Yeah.
Is he the only undrafted guy to get picked here? I think
Yes.
so, right?
Yeah. And it wasn't even close. There was like Najee Marshall, I think, was the only other one. Jose Alvarado. But, I mean, yeah.
Keep naming former Pelicans. Keep going.
Future Pelican Keon Ellis.
I don't have an issue with this pick. It's just like it comes down to, do you think Reaves' numbers without stars are sustainable, like on a team where it's not just the stars aren't playing, it's like there just aren't any, and he is the guy all the time like that, which, like, I don't know why you would doubt that, given it's been several years of him kind of doing this, and especially what he's done this year. I wonder if there'll be, he's a Laker, so there probably won't be that much pushback, but like,
I
think it's justifiable.
Oh, for sure. And also, initially, I think it helped his profile that he was on the Lakers. But now I think people outside of LA have probably to overcompensate for people near LA who are like trumpeting up Austin Reaves as this next big thing. And I think what I don't know if it's a point for him or against him. If you're doubting whether he can do stuff as the primary guy, it's almost easier based off the stuff he does the best now to fit him in as the primary guy and trust him less as a secondary guy, because he's not going to give you a ton defensively. And so unless if your primary guy is Luka, those two can absolutely work together on offense. It's, well, how do you build out the defense around them? And so if Austin Reaves is just your focal point of the offense, it becomes a little bit easier to build out your defense rather than focusing on, our top 1 and 2 options aren't going to be the best defender. So I think it's a completely defensible pick. I'm just LaMelo Ball pilled is all.
Well, Jay's got another one here that also is not LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, so I think, let me first reveal the pick. So I went with Desmond Bane for the OKC Thunder. But to speak to LaMelo a little bit, when we did this exercise last year, I passed on Ja for similar reasons. It's just LaMelo is sort of unserious. He just basketball doesn't seem like his main priority. And I think in the long term with guys like that, I don't want to commit my franchise to somebody who is at that sort of approach to the game. I think that like his talent is there, but it's not so transcendent that I want to deal with that sort of mentality. So I took the safer pick, even though, Bane is kind of struggling in his transition to Orlando so far. I think, it's been a short stretch. And like I said before, I'm trying not to be a prisoner of this 15-game stretch. He's a 40% three-point shooter. He's going to plug in. He defend well. He's not going to be a franchise star. LaMelo, in his best scenario, can be that, but I think it's a very, very outside shot, and I'm not willing to bet on it.
And that's not even factoring in the health stuff for LaMelo, which is I drafted Tyrese Haliburton, so we all hear me saying this. I get it, but I mean that had to have been, if it were me, that would, because it's not Haliburton, I will consider injuries. And
I think just for the stage of the draft we're at, if the injuries are, I don't think he's ever going to be healthy. That, like Grant said, would have been the bigger factor for me. If you're at 16 and you're building a franchise from scratch, I'm going to just take the guy that I think even has to Daryl Morey at a 5% chance of turning into a franchise player, where Bane feels like he'll top out. He's an infinitely scalable number 2, but that does kind of feel like Jay said, where he'll top out.
Well, I mean, you took Paolo, so you got a type.
The healthy ones, unlike you. But,
well, and Bryant's not here, but Bryant did take LaMelo Ball with the next pick at 17 for the Lakers. And
automatically the steal of the draft, right?
I mean, you got to do it. Like, just for the reason you said, is like, we're starting a franchise. We're now into, these guys are all starters that are still going to come off the board here. But like, there is that slim chance that if he is healthy and he does get more serious and you put a real team around him, LaMelo could be the best player on a team that excels. Like, right? Like, in ways that, I mean, I'm looking at down the list. There's a couple guys you might still squint and see that with, but he's the last obvious one.
Yeah, Pacome Dadier would have been the move here. So can I actually ask LaMelo Ball? I'm genuinely asking, because now I've heard it twice, and I've heard it about what is the evidence that LaMelo Ball doesn't take basketball seriously? Like, what are we basing? Is it because he got a speeding ticket 3 years ago or something? Because
I think some of that's unfair. I think just shot selection, like the one-legged stuff. Like if you're making that at 40%, keep it up. But like he just isn't. And I think some of it is unfair. Like, but the speeding ticket, just like his persona, the general like silliness. You do see write-ups where it's like his teammates love him because he is like loose and like a fun guy. It does feel old manny, but I am one, so I'll just say like, what is the track record of a guy with his personality and his like, again, unserious approach becoming the player we think he might be to, like top option leader of a great team? Like, I don't know. There's not a lot of precedent, I guess I would say, for someone like him reaching the level he would need to reach.
I feel like with him, it's a chicken or the egg thing. Like, is he playing unserious basketball and that's why the Hornets suck, or do the Hornets suck and that's why he's playing unserious basketball? Like, is he a good stats, bad team guy, and if he goes to a good team he can contribute meaningfully to winning, or is he just like his style of play will preclude him from meaningfully contributing to winning? And I think 6 or 5+ years into his NBA career, we still don't have an answer to that question, which is concerning.
It's not on the same scale as Zach LaVine to where he's because with the Hornets, there's the unserious version of the Hornets, and then there's, they're starting to get more serious, and LaMelo is a part of this problem, which I think should impact his value. He's not healthy, or Brandon Miller's not healthy, and so they finally give LaMelo spacing, and he's back now as we're recording this. But this is kind of I was looking forward to this season. The two questions for me were, can LaMelo stay healthy? So far, that's not looking great. And then the second question was, what does he look like around actual spacing where it feels like there is more of an ecosystem for him to operate in? Because I would have more questions about how does he scale back his game or adapt his game when the Hornets are built to and now that Con Knippel's there doing what he's doing, the centers have overachieved in Charlotte. Sion James is just a defensive monster. I'm hoping they can string together because we need a verdict on LaMelo, and like that could be part of impacting his value too, is we just don't know. And by this point, we should.
Couple things. Looking down the list here of the top 30 guys, I think you could make the case that other than, he's coming later, it doesn't matter, I'll spoil it, Alex Sarr, other than him, LaMelo is like the only guy that has not played in what you would term like a relevant stretch of NBA basketball in his career, right? Like Charlotte has been bad the whole time he's been there. And so like the related point I would make with that is that he, more than anybody, full stop on this list, needs to be like observed in a different environment. Because if he goes to another team and we got all the same stuff, then okay, it's the chicken, I guess, in the chicken or egg analogy. And if he goes somewhere else and it works and it's different, like, okay, well, now we know. But he's unique almost, other than Sarr maybe, who's got like half the track record, if that, a third maybe, career-wise. Like we've never seen him play meaningful basketball. So like how do you make judgments on him? That's why he fell, I think, ultimately, because this will seem really low to a lot of people.
Do you assign any value to when you look at, the offense with him on the floor during these years has been decidedly above average, and you look at the personnel that he's, I don't want to say dragging all the time, but because I can't get that out of my head. Maybe I'm just being stubborn.
Well, all that stuff cuts both ways too, because like it's decidedly better, it's above average, but okay, if he's this offensive centerpiece, like I don't think you'd say the offenses have been objectively great, but then like you've been right to cite all the time, like the level of shooting talent around him has been abysmal for almost his entire career, and especially lately. So a guy like him with no shooting around him, that's just like you're taking away all these weapons that he could utilize and look a lot better alongside. I don't know. He's definitely someone we should have spent time talking about, because again, like 17th. And he's been an all-star. Like that's.
I don't remember where I think I was the one who took him last year. I don't remember where I took him. I'll have to go double check that and see what it was. BK also had the next pick at number 18 in the Minnesota. Oh no, this is you, Grant, right?
This is me. And I will say I surprised myself a little bit. Talk about prisoner of the moment. Go ahead.
With Grant, it's either they have to be injured or recency bias. Is what
Here's the thing. So I've made it a point that like I would like someone that's going to help my team win. And the Pistons have won a lot, and it's not all Cade Cunningham. Duren, the next guy that comes off the board, you break my heart with, Dan, and I really almost took him. Kind of wish I did. But the most improved conversation, Jalen Duren, is like way up there. He's a plus offensive player that has added, like he can just take his guy off the dribble from the top of the arc, which is not common for a center. His pick and roll defense is good now. He's a huge part of the reason the Pistons just dominate the paint on both ends. He's a conventional center, though, in many respects, which is like you're not going to use him to switch. You're not going to space the floor with him. He's also like I think he's 22, and he's taken this leap now. So I think he's going to finish this season as like a top 5 center and maybe better than that. And if you were putting together all NBA teams, you'd be talking about him right now. The season ended. That needs to hold up, and the Pistons need to keep winning, and he needs to keep mattering. But given his youth and just the strides that he's made year over year now, like I just kind of couldn't leave him on the board anymore. But the guy you take next, Dan, is the one that it's going to haunt me.
Mm-hmm.
So at 19, I went with Deni Avdija, which is just, he's still kind of young, but not someone that you would expect to. He's the past 3 years, the season over in season improvement has been insane. And we're kind of reaching the point where you don't get to say anymore, well, he's just not at this level. It's not going to be sustainable, or it can't be for a good team. He's basically averaging like 25 plus, 5 plus. Like those 25 and 5 seasons still matter. He'll give you really impactful defense. And I think, again, I kept having to remind myself that we were starting a team from scratch. I feel like if you were starting a team around Jalen Duren, just to bring it back to the other, I don't know what your ceiling is with Jalen Duren as it's easier to fit the perimeter parts around him, then you have to think, oh, Deni Avdija needs the ball in his hands, or you want to put the ball in Deni Avdija's hands most of the time. So I guess it makes it easier from that sense, but Jalen Duren feels a little like straight to DVD Bam Adebayo-y for me, and we wouldn't build around Bam Adebayo as our best player.
Well, yeah. No, I have no pushback. I think Avdija, I guess if I had to make a case, I would just say that I think Duren might be a massive part of why your team is like very difficult to deal with on both ends at the center spot. Might be someone, it's Isaiah Stewart's doing a lot of the lifting defensively, but like I think we're getting to the point where you could say you can build a top 10 defense around Duren in the middle. Avdija, as his offense has scaled up so much, I don't think he's quite the same level of defender. Which is like, what are you going to do? He's only got so many calories to burn, but offensively, Avdija is just like, he's just a better player. He seems like he might be a true first option wing, which is like kind of what he looked like at the end of last year, which makes you think it's pretty real. I should have flipped a coin and just taken Avdija.
We're on to pick number 20. Memphis. There was the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't know who went there. Mr. Toporek, who went to the Memphis Grizzlies?
I'll be honest. I was just tilting that you took Deni. So I was scrambling here. So this guy, I'm interested to see if or how the perception changes of him in the coming years, because I took Josh Giddey, and I can already hear Grizzlies fans screaming like about his reputation from the playoffs from a couple years ago when he got completely played off the floor against Dallas. I will say this, like obviously there's this perception because OKC traded him just for Alex Caruso, did not get picks back, got just a straight up trade, and the Thunder immediately won the title. And now, that's just a punchline more for the Bulls than for Giddey, but like Giddey is part of that. So I think that's going to be baked into the perception of him overall. But since they traded Zach LaVine, after they traded Zach LaVine last year, he played, I believe, 25 games, averaged about 20 points, 9.5 rebounds, 8 assists, shot 45% from 3-point range, almost 50% from the field. This year, he's averaging 20, 10, and almost 10, shooting 46% overall, 39% from 3-point range. So if the 3-point shot is real, and we're operating in a now 39 game sample size, so I'm not saying that it is, but if this progression that he's shown from 3-point range is real, I think that does raise the ceiling on Josh Giddey more than the national perception of him might suggest at the moment. So, I don't know that he's a number one guy on a title team. I don't think he's a number one guy on a title team, but I mean, he is a big part of why the Bulls have gotten off to a surprisingly good start this year. And, I looked at the other guys in this range. There were a couple of guys I was tempted by that I think probably have a higher long-term ceiling, a few of whom went like significantly later than Giddey. But I don't know. I mean, I'm intrigued by what he's shown post Levine trade last year and then in the early going this year, enough that he's been in the NBA this is his 5th season, but he also just turned 23. Like, he's still really young and has a chance to continue growing.
This would have been tough. I get everything you're saying, but also could you make the case, and I guess you kind of did, if you are building from scratch, it makes even more sense to go with someone like Giddey because his limitations are best worked around by making him the central focus of what you're doing?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's similar in a way to the Paolo problem where you do have to build a very certain way around him. But yeah, if he's going to be your centerpiece moving forward, then you can target the archetypes that you need instead of having to force him into, I think he just had no chance in OKC because he needs to be the primary playmaker, have the ball in his hands. And obviously they have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It was just never going to happen for him there. But seeing what he's been able to do in this role makes you think oh, okay, there is a reason they took him number 6 overall in 2021. He's showing the upside that he had coming into the draft. It just took a couple of years for him to get there.
Yeah, I think you're right to have questions about viability in a championship team, or he might run into the same stuff where he gets played off the floor in the playoffs type of thing should the Bulls get there. But also he's probably an all-star right now. And if you want to really simplify it, I don't think anybody coming off the board after him if you had the all-star voting happen now, would be anywhere close to that. So and given his youth, that's not just he's not he's 30 and he just happens to be playing better. It's he's really young and he's reached this level. I'm not a Giddey guy, but I think that's just the right pick at this point.
Are you trying to say you don't emote, or that you're not a fan of Josh Giddey?
Both.
You also had pick number 21, Mr. Toporek, going to the Dallas Mavericks. Who did you select?
I did. I took Trey Murphy III here, and this is really just me trying to get Trey Murphy his own team. Because we've seen this whenever Zion is not playing, and Trey Murphy is... I feel like the Pelicans have had to be dragged into featuring him as a number one option, and they still haven't really committed to the bit in the way that they should. But Trey Murphy is one of the highest volume, most accurate three-point shooters at his position over the past few years. I mean, over the past 3 years, averaging 8 attempts from 3 per night, shooting 37% overall. Every team wants that type of a player, a high volume, high efficiency forward. And so that alone is tempting, but I also just think he's got a higher ceiling if they actually was on his own team and was featured as a number 1 or a number 2 guy. The Pelicans have just been built so strangely over the last few years that we haven't quite seen the ceiling. So this is just me betting on, I believe there's more more untapped upside in Trey Murphy, even though, I mean, he's older. He's 25, he turned 25 in June. So he's older than a lot of guys coming off the board. So some of the guys after him probably have a higher ceiling as well. But I don't know. I like him a lot. I think he's got a chance to be something special if he's not playing on one of the most dysfunctional teams in the NBA.
Yeah.
It's tough to imagine. I don't know what his ceiling would be as just your primary guy. We've really never even seen it. And even now, to your point, it's if Zion's going to be healthy or Derek Queen is there, they're probably going to want to run more stuff through Derek Queen. I don't hate the pick. I just have trouble envisioning it because we haven't seen it.
I mean, isn't in some ways the fact that the Pelicans don't think it's a good idea to use him that way, doesn't that like suggest that it is in fact a good idea? They've decided we can't try this, and like their decisions don't work, so by default he should be. Yeah, I don't know either, but like I also, Brian, to your point, like it's not just 8 threes a game. It's he shoots them super deep. He can shoot them off the move, and he's not like, I don't know. He's not Kyle Korver, where if you close out and run him off the line, problem solved. It's like, oh God, we're all getting dunked on now. Like and that just speaks to like maybe they should explore what like more Trey Murphy looks like. I think that's right. Dan, do you want to get real on brand in a second here?
I have the next pick, and I think in the steal of the draft, we should probably term this one. I went with Reed Sheppard to the Philadelphia 76ers at number 22. This is when we're talking about where we're at in this exercise. As of right now, no, Reed Sheppard's not going to make an all-star game, but he's shooting over 48% from 3. He's developed a nice chemistry with Alperen Sengun, shown he can move away from the ball, shown he has done a bunch of stuff on the ball. He's shooting over 45% on self-created threes. Yes, he's not a starter, so he is getting some lineup bumps there, and the fact that you're not the primary option helps him. But that's also kind of his appeal to me, is you like guys who could toggle between 2 existences. He is, Grant and I, coming out of his draft class, had thought, oh, this is someone who's not going to submarine your defense either. And in what very little action we saw from him, even during Summer League, you kind of started to question, but he's handsy. He'll get some steals, has a lot of guys around him to insulate him. But give me, at this point, I could envision him. No, is it the most likely outcome? Yes, it is the most likely outcome because it's Reed Sheppard, but he's going to make a bunch of all NBA teams. But I'm going to look for someone who I think can hit that ceiling. And I think at this point, I thought about him when I took Deni Avdija a few picks ago because I'm just like, I want to bet on it because Deni Avdija is probably not going to make multiple All-NBA teams if we're being honest. Reed Sheppard, it's the mystery box element. You could say, well, the odds are against him doing that as well. But so I even think this is late for him. I love Deni Avdija, but I'm kind of thinking I should have made a point and taken Reed Sheppard there.
I mean, at this point in the draft, I think as I look down it, I think we're all a little risk averse because we didn't really pull the trigger on, guys with as little experience as Sheppard and as much upside as maybe I'm telling on myself with my next pick, but I do redeem myself even later. It's just like, Sheppard's sort of an exceptional case because he had such, really high pre-draft billing as far as his ceiling. But I think just going with potential, even especially when you've seen glimpses of like what that might look like this year, is a pretty good way to go. Because like my next guy, maybe we should just put him up now. I take Jalen Suggs next for the Knicks, and like, man, that's a boring pick compared to Reed Sheppard. But like, and the justification is he's on the short list, and some people would say the best defensive guard in the league. If you think Amen Thompson is not a guard and has had one season, injuries are a factor there too. I'm staying on brand for me, where he shot almost 40% from 3, plays super hard. Like seems like he's going to be on winning teams a lot, assuming he's healthy. But like, what's the Jalen Suggs upside? We may have actually already seen his best season, and it was 2 years ago. Compared to Sheppard, that's a lot less exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I like the pick, but I don't know. I'm intrigued to see what he becomes. I'm just intrigued to see how the Magic shake out in general. So, it feels like he's another guy. If he has more of an offensive ceiling that we haven't seen yet, this is going to look like a great pick. I mean, it's kind of a lowercase version of the Amen Thompson, where I don't think he's got the same type of ceiling as Amen, but defense alone, like point of attack defense is so important in the NBA, and you're getting one of the better ones in the league. And now, I mean, this year he is shooting a career high, like 52% from 3. So there's
totally sustainable.
Yeah, there's room for growth.
There's the dials all go to 11 element to him, though, where I kind of understand where it's uninspiring because he's following me selecting what if Steph Curry could make all defense. And so it really just eclipses the value of his. So I understand where he's coming from.
It's hard to look good after that. Yeah. I mean, I think I said all I want to say about Suggs. We kind of need to get to. He's not here to defend himself, so let's get to.
This is in fact
Bryant's
why
next
he
pick.
is not on the podcast. He knew.
Peyton Pritchard to 24 to the Cavs. Here's the thing. I do think Peyton Pritchard is a starting caliber NBA player. Just hasn't really been in position to do that on some very good Celtics teams. That's all.
Yeah,
He's
Well,
a great shooter. Like, I mean, look, how different is he really, Dan, from Reed Shepherd? If we're going to be honest.
Oh.
I'm just really trying to bother you. I don't actually.
Who do you trust more to shoot off the dribble, Reed Shepherd or Peyton Pritchard?
How far away from the basket are we?
Look, Peyton Pritchard is to Reed Shepherd is like Kyrie Irving to Steph Curry. It's just both exceedingly valuable players, but Reed Shepherd's in his own, GOAT class there.
Also, how old is Pritchard? Isn't he sneaky old?
He's 27.
Yeah,
He kind of is what he is at this point.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's a nice ancillary piece for the Celtics, won Sixth Man of the Year last year, but kind of we're at the point of the draft where you're taking some swings. And even, you could probably get a better real life pick at this point too. But if we're talking about upside, like, there really isn't much left with Pritchard.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably would have passed on him. Dan has convinced me to swing for the fences with talent. And I think if we had this conversation before we did the actual draft, I probably would have considered that a little bit more. But I think by the end of the draft here, we're all kind of shifting our mindsets a little bit to swing for upside, and that's kind of what I would have done a little bit. And
that's what you do.
I did do for the Warriors at 25. I was hoping this guy would fall to me. Stephon Castle. I guess earlier in the draft, I was trying to be resistant to like the early play with Mobley and Bane to some extent. But this guy has had before his injury knocked him out for a short period, has had a great start to the season. He's actually kind of become more Stephon Castle than he's just leaned into everything. His strengths have come out even more, and his weaknesses have come out even more. He hasn't quite improved. His bugaboo, his one knock on him is that he needs a long range shot, and that hasn't shown up yet, right? But everything else he does well has been there. His scoring is up. He's been a better playmaker. He's been better. I mean, he's been as good defensively. His overall shooting is better, but that's because he's just been, that's all been inside the arc. So like his one thing we need from him is long range shooting, and his turnovers are still like they're kind of out of whack this early. I don't expect it to stay over 4 per game, but that's where it is right now. But I think just the upside is there. He can probably be your Robin to somebody's Wemby. So somebody's Batman Wemby. But yeah, I was excited to get it here. I would have considered him earlier in the draft, and I was
Peyton
happy
Pritchard?
I mean, the two guys I was hoping for in these two slots were Shepherd and Castle. Obviously, you sniped me on Shepherd, but I was happy to get Castle down here at 25.
Yeah, I mean, like, do you think? I guess you sort of answered it, but like, let's say you knew he was going to shoot it like this going forward. Is he still someone you would pick here? Because I almost would. Just like he's so good at everything else. Certainly, the shot is worth the wait, right? Like it's worth gambling. But do you feel like you need that to be a given to take him here?
I mean, I think in this range and given the players going around him, I'd still take him. But like I said, his ceiling goes exponentially up if he does get that. I mean, his aggressiveness at the rim. I mean, just he's got such a strong baseline with everything else that he does well that I think he's got a decent floor anyway. So yeah, I would take him here. The reigning rookie of the year, I forgot to mention here, considering who's going around him.
He did, yeah. I think at this stage too, you could even make. I know you talked about betting on upside being important, but in a real draft, if we weren't building from scratch, you would like to get a player who would even have like second, third best player on a title contender at 25 is just objectively good value.
Mm-hmm.
Jay, you had pick 26 with the LA Clippers. Who did you take for them? And did you select carbon credits?
Oh, I was waiting for that. Some sort of dig, but no, I kind of went somewhat of a safe route. I think we're in a similar situation here where, I took Jaden McDaniels for the Clippers. He's a guy with, he's got such a solid baseline. He was all defense once, I believe, all second team. Great in transition. He just doesn't have the 3-point shot yet. But this year, he's starting to show that. He's put in a lot of work over the offseason on his handles, and his 3-point shot is looked to be improved in the early going. If that sticks, he can be one of the better two-way wings in the NBA. And I think, like I said, at this stage, I'm happy with that, getting that down here.
Yeah, I think that's it does feel like a safe pick, but at the point in the draft, and especially, you mentioned the improved handle, the stretch he had where Anthony Edwards wasn't playing was kind of absurd. And so that would be, I think, there's players that you could bet on from here, and some of us do. Oh, they have the better potential to become a star. But if you were saying, hey, I'm going to get my second or third best guy and then work my way back from there in free agency or trades or whatever, I get the logic of where this was coming. He's just, the proof of concept with him is huge.
I think too, we've talked several times with different picks for different reasons about you're going to run into Jason Tatum, or you're going to run into Jaden McDaniels is 100% someone you need to get through a playoff gauntlet, just because he's the guy you would just throw on, you name star wing or combo forward X. Again, it's a different approach, but it's good contrast with Castle, who's the value is more speculative, but McDaniels is I could absolutely, he is someone that will be on the floor in game 7 of the finals. And you're because he has to be. So, I mean, that's, I don't know how much better you're going to do this late in the draft.
We move on to pick number 27, which was the Phoenix Suns. This was a BK pick, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Shaden Sharp. BK backstory here. Bryant, despite many think he might be a Celtics fan at this point, having he does root for the Portland Trailblazers. I will say this surprised me a little bit because I have no idea what Shaden Sharp's ceiling is supposed to be anymore.
I mean, maybe that's the argument. Because just athletically, he's, I don't know what percentile you'd put him in. It's single digits in the NBA. Maybe the creation gets better. I think if we're gonna concede we're also in the speculative portion here. I don't know. I could imagine him becoming just a spectacular offensive player, but I could also imagine him being kind of Jalen Green for forever. So I don't know. I don't know where you go with that.
How do you two feel, Brian, Jay? You have any thoughts about would either of you have taken Shaden Sharp here?
He was not on my board in the top 30, but I after really the top 22, 23-ish, there are just so many guys in this range that I think you can make an argument for. And there are a bunch of guys who went undrafted.
We got to talk about those at the end for sure.
Yeah. So it's hard for me to poke too many holes in any of these picks at the end because, I mean, there are a bunch of guys that I think you can make a case for, and it really just comes down to personal preference at that point. But I mean, Shaden Sharp was looking really good this season before he got hurt.
Yeah.
Grant is in at 28 for the Milwaukee Bucks. Who did you take?
Just, I mean, Sarr has looked markedly better in a lot of key ways. Alex Sarr goes to the Bucks at 28, I should say. The 3-point shooting might be real. He's a super mobile, big, doesn't have great hands, but even those are better. I could just see him being, give him 2-3 more years of seasoning, and he's an all defensive caliber, big guy that can space the floor and make plays off the dribble. I mean, maybe the Wizards will be good enough by then for that stuff to matter. Maybe not. But I just took a flyer on someone. I think his upside is pretty darn high. Again, we need to see him in a winning environment to get a real sense of it. But This was a hard pick because there's a half dozen guys I think you could justify taking here, and it was to some extent it was just a chance.
Sarr's interesting though, because if you really leaned into the unknown quantity of it all, you could have justified taking him before LaMelo or something. Is that I'm gonna swing that this guy is the number one type cornerstone because of what he could do defensively, and as you mentioned, all the stuff he's able to do offensively, even if he's still not that physical presence there.
Yeah, it's just like, the Wizards of it all. It makes it so hard too. It's just like he's not played a real basketball game yet, so I know nobody is taking him seriously on a scouting report. Nobody, like, I don't know how you factor all that stuff in. Just the physical tools are.
You
even
go
though
off
he
vibes.
was it's vibes and physical tools. That's all. The next guy, you keep doing this. I really thought hard about the next guy too.
So I took Jabari Smith Jr. at number 29 for the Denver Nuggets. This is one of those picks where I feel like I could, and I'm not being an asshole now, I feel like I could look like a genius or a moron if we just fast forward like 1 or 2 years down the line. I think he's underrated defensively. The fact that he has played so many different positions on defense so far, and maybe you look at it and say, well, they've done a lot of that because you don't trust him as a 5. Sure, but I think a lot of teams would play Jabari Smith Jr. a ton or more at the 5 than we've seen in Houston. The offense is, I think the handle can be good enough to at least attack closeouts. Whether he follows all the way through on those drives, do you trust him working from the mid-range, whether it's dribbling into it or from a standstill? That's where it gets murky. But this is just... He's been, the third option ever since he arrived, or lower, because he's lower now, ever since he arrived in Houston. And so you're trying to extrapolate from that. It's dangerous, but just as of right now, he spaces the floor and can be awesome and versatile on the defensive end. And so I will take that at number 29.
Yeah.
Final pick, Mr. Toporek, the Boston Celtics. Jay's Boston Celtics. Who did you give them?
Well, they're just so desperate for a center right now that I went with Onyeka Okongwu, which again, like this, Dan, I feel the very same way you do about this Jabari Smith pick. I could look like a genius or just a total idiot with this one because Brandon Miller was the other guy I seriously considered here. We just haven't seen enough of him with the injury last year in particular, but I know he's back now. He missed a good chunk of time already this year as well. So like in a year, if he stays healthy, Brandon Miller is obviously going to be the pick here. But when someone gets that banged up this early in the career, you just have some modicum of concern there. Okongwu, maybe Grant, I might be subscribing to your recency bias because this was shortly after the game that he hit 8 threes.
8 threes.
Yeah. But I mean, he's just added that to his game. Like he barely took any threes at all his first 3 seasons. Was low volume the last 2, but was starting to shoot them. And now this year he just came back and is shooting 5 threes a game and is shooting almost 41% from deep. Not starting still a ton, but he was buried behind Clint Capella for most of his early career. And now they have Kristaps Porzingis as well. I think he could be a starting center in the league. I think you want a stretch 5. So, ideally, if you're like starting to build a roster, you want your center to be able to shoot threes if you can build a team from scratch. And he's decent, not an elite rim protector, but is fine on that end of the floor. So I don't think he's going to be like a top option on offense, but I think he gives you enough scoring wise. And I don't have any major concerns about him on either end of the floor. So at this spot, it felt like a safe pick, but I mean, definitely guys on the board who have higher upside than him that, in a year from now, I'm not sure he's going to make the cut.
Yeah. You guys want to talk about some of the guys that are still on the board? Because you mentioned one, Brandon Miller was just, he was staring at me for like 3 picks. And I was like, why am I not doing this? I think he's the one that if he could, and it was the same concern you had of just like, we've seen so little. Like how can you take him? Does anybody else have like an obvious, I can't believe this guy's still on the board? Dan, was there one that you're surprised nobody picked?
Yeah, Patrick Williams is just sitting there.
Killian Hayes.
I was a little surprised that no one went the Ausar Thompson route and
That's
kind
the
of did the
one for
justification. So that was another guy. I want to say I'm collectively proud for no one buying into the Dyson Daniels sham. I think that Dyson Daniels is a very useful player, but we got ahead of our skis last season, and we've kind of just the spacing in Atlanta. They have a floor spacing 5 on the court virtually at all times, and his efficiency has been dog shit. And I thought someone was. I would have expected someone to take him. He has that most improved player, and again, I think he's very good. But we assigned a lot of value to someone who hadn't really played his first 2 seasons, and then all of a sudden turned out to be a useful NBA player and was billed as, that's the danger in selecting most improved off of virtually a non-existent baseline to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think any of the concerns you would raise about either of the Thompsons or someone like Castle exist in Daniels and are way more severe. Like he's not like a good ball handler, and he's a nominal point guard who also can't. He is like, if there's 10 guys that you would have thought about, maybe he's one of them, but like I never really seriously considered picking him. I'm trying to think who else.
Should Reaves have been given consideration? I'll name current Hawks players.
I think there's like 3 other guys in that class I would have taken before Reaves. Like, don't you take Buzelis, Keyshawn George, even you might take before Reaves.
Look, I didn't put this in my write-up. I really thought hard about Keyshawn George as one of my last 2 picks, but that was had I been attending Grant school of what's happened the past 2 weeks, I might have absolutely done that. But
still accepting applicants.
I will say going into this, I thought the 24 class was going to have the fewest players selected, but it turns out 23 only had 2.
Oh my God, that's right.
With Wemby and Amen, and then 24 had Sarr, Shepard, and Castle. So I think if Miller had gotten selected, I did think about him too. But so maybe they did deserve a little bit more. But it's kind of funny that they ended up being last in this exercise.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Thompson. I think. Yeah. We mentioned Asar, Brandon Miller. You got to go down pretty like Lively, maybe as someone you give some thought to. Jaime Jaquez is having a great start. I don't know if I would have gone with him. That's
Keontae George.
Tumani Kamara, maybe, like if you really want to galaxy brain it.
Yeah.
Walker Kessler is not in the 23 class, but I gave him a quick look because he's hurt. I don't know. Jaden Ivey, probably not. Keegan Murray, probably. Keegan Murray, if he'd been healthy to start the year, maybe we would have talked about him. Anybody else? I want to appease all the fan bases that are going to be mad that we didn't take their player.
Tari Eason.
Christian Brown. Maybe.
Christian Brown's a good, because I think he could have fallen in. Jay took Jaden McDaniels, right? He could have kind of fallen into that of what you're getting, and it's just this super high-end role player. So I think he could have. That's a good call out.
How about
Kuminga? Did
you? Yeah, I was about to ask about him. Yeah.
Boy, somewhere out there's a redraft of that class where I think I took him like 3rd. This was quite a while ago, but I'd say we've settled the Franz versus Kuminga debate.
It's not TBD still.
Yeah, I think the jury has returned a verdict to deliberately change the subject. Andrew Nembhard is way down there in the 22 class.
Did you mention? I feel bad I didn't take him. Apologies if you mentioned him, but just offensively, I couldn't bring myself to do it. Bilal Coulibaly.
Didn't mention him. He's an upside player, right? Like he fits into the Castle kind of. I mean, he hasn't produced like Castle, but yeah, I think he's someone to definitely have considered.
What about Jalen Green?
Yeah, I mentioned Shaden Sharp as like a version of Jalen Green, and Jalen Green's just sitting right there.
Look, I mean, he came back for a second and looked pretty good. So if he had been playing that way and never got injured, maybe he like forces his way into the latter half of this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, like it's a stretch, but like Aaron Nesmith, if we're taking guys like McDaniels and Suggs and stuff like that,
if you took contracts into consideration, Aaron Nesmith might have made that one.
Devin Vassell.
Right. Yeah.
Ooh. He's the quintessential. I feel like he can do more, and he's never going to do more.
Yeah. He's like quietly been topped out for like 3 years, and we're just still waiting. I mean, Isaiah Stewart's there. You can make the case he's mattered more to the Pistons than Duren, and I took Duren.
I don't see anybody else that's
Yeah.
would have been at least.
I'm sure
I wonder.
someone will come up with one.
Yeah, I was about to say they can let us know in the comment. Like, should Case and Wallace have been
Yeah.
involved
Yep.
here?
Yeah.
That's
Case and Wallace on his next team.
Yeah, right. When he gets
On
to
his,
do
on
stuff,
his
finally.
next team.
Just like Josh Giddey. I mean, it's too crowded there, but they're going to have to pick between him and Caruso at some point. And if they pick Caruso, Case and Wallace is going to break out somewhere else.
So, very quickly, can we go one by one? And we'll start with, I feel like we haven't heard enough from Jay. Were there any, like, on both sides of the spectrum, a pick that you thought was particularly good value that was made versus one that you were a little surprised by that stands out? And if you don't have an answer, because I'm just throwing this on everybody off the cuff, that's fine too.
I didn't have. I mean, honestly, I think Ant was pretty good value up at whatever he ended up going, because I expected him to go second, and I know that's probably a cop out because it's such the top of the draft. But I mean, beyond that, like I said, I was super happy to get Castle down low. But I really don't want to call out my own pick. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't really.
I guess this question is moot because of the Peyton Pritchard pick. That's the one. That
I'm trying not to bring that one back.
Bryant did get one of the better value picks. I think Sengun at 7. I thought was really good value.
Yeah, that's a good one. No, I mean, my Haliburton pick, I'll just get out ahead of it and say like that's a potentially a wildly terrible pick. I think, Dan, you getting Avdia at 19 just keeps jumping off the page to me. If he is this, then he should have gone 7-8 spots earlier, I think. Just if this is the level he's going to be at, like what are we doing? How is he down here in the Jalen Duren, Josh Giddey range?
All right, now say good things about me taking Reed Shepherd even after that.
You stayed true to yourself. What else can we do?
I'd like to commend Brian by making a divisive pick at number 1.
Yep,
with
thank
Wemby.
you.
I thought that
Thank
was-
you. Yeah.
So
I know you
brave.
put a lot of thought into that one, but you made the brave decision.
I know. Well, I liked you trying to find the contrarian take on that. I appreciate it.
I couldn't. To be clear, I don't believe it. I was just
Right,
trying, like, what
right.
would be the case to not take him? And
Yeah, it's an interesting thought exercise. Like, how many injuries does he need to have before you're like, I'm starting to get nervous?
So many more.
unless the mothership calls him home, I'm
Right.
probably just in the bag until the wheels fall off.
I
Yeah,
think
and-
what you might, injuries aside, you could say maybe Wemby doesn't become someone you build the offense around. And like, you just got to have that at number 1. And it's just like, also maybe he does. And then maybe the defense is so good that it doesn't matter. He's there's just no scenario where he doesn't go number 1.
This was
Yeah.
a lot of fun, though, guys. Thanks
Yeah.
for bringing it to the table. It was agonizing in some instances when you got like to certain picks, but it was a lot of fun overall. We'll probably be doing this again at some point, I imagine. It seems to be becoming an annual thing. But Grant, other than that, unless anyone has any other thoughts, are you ready just to take us out of here?
Yep. Thanks again, Jay. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Bryant Knox. You're with us in spirit today, and you can't defend yourself, so what a sport. Just everybody, please. Thanks, everybody, for listening, for watching. Remember, rate, review, subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Join our Discord. Links for that in the YouTube and podcast description. Until we draft again or otherwise come speak to you, we close with shouts to Frank Ntilikina and apologies to Jared Allen.